Call this meeting of the Housing Authority of the City of Salem to order. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Kaiser? Present. Commissioner Anderson?
Also.
Commissioner Danke? Here. Chair McCoy?
Here.
Commissioner Ossick?
Hello. Here.
Commissioner Hoy?
Hello.
Commissioner Cook? Here. Vice Chair Lewis?
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, there are no additions and deletions to the agenda. Public comment. There is nobody signed up. Is there anybody here wishes to address the Housing Authority? Seeing none, we'll move to the consent calendar. Vice Chair Lewis.
Thank you. I moved the passage of the consent calendar with the following polls. And yes, we do have polls in the Housing Authority meeting. We haven't had one all year, but, so Andy, get ready. 3.3C and 3.3E are being pulled by Commissioner Anderson.
Okay.
I move passage of the remaining part of.
We have a second? Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar with the polls of 3.3C and 3.3E by Commissioner Anderson. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. So now we go to special orders of business. Commissioner Anderson, you got a motion for us?
Yes, I do with respect. Yes, I do. With respect to item 3.3C, I move that we adopt resolution number 2219 as in the staff recommendation.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Anderson, seconded by Commissioner Hoy. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you very much. I pulled this in the other related matter just so we could have Director Welch inform the council and the public about the good work that's being done here and what is happening, because we all know of the crisis, not just in Salem, but all over the country in affordable housing and housing for homeless and housing for the nearly homeless. And we can't do much about any place but what we look at here in Salem. So I'd be very appreciative if you could give us a little detail about this.
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And that's exactly what I was going to say.
Andy.
We didn't talk before this meeting, did we?
No, we did not. Yeah, we're, SHA right now has five different properties, projects that we're working on. Yaquina and South Fair is the primary one right now, and costs keep going up, and so we're looking for resources. What you see in your information tonight is sources of use, sources and uses, and really on Yaquina and South Fair, right now about 2.5% of the sources are from pass-throughs from HUD. And so what we're asking for is to up $1 million through federal pass-throughs, and that would increase the pass-through to about 6.8% of the total property cost. So, but that additional money is very, very important.
Anybody else? Any other comments? Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Anderson. Whoop. No?
Good stuff.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Hoy that we pass item 3.3C. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, Commissioner Anderson.
I have another motion. I move that the city council adopt resolution number, the Housing Authority, forget the council. I move that the Housing Authority adopt resolution number 2221 as contained in staff report item number 3.3E.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Anderson, seconded by Commissioner Lewis, that we pass item 3.3E, Resolution 2221. Commissioner Anderson, to your...
Thank you. I would repeat the same comments that I made earlier, but I'd also ask Director Welch to talk about the home program and how these two, the two agenda items that we pulled and are passing tonight relate to each other.
They do. They're part and parcel. Home is a different program from HUD, if you will, Housing and Urban Development, but a companion piece to the CDBG funds, and they work together well, and they're complementary, and they both are critical for this project that we've been discussing.
Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you. Assuming we pass this motion and then you get the funding, how soon can you start on the project and how long will it take to finish it?
Our schedule is to get our finance in July, and it's going to be about a 14-month period, mobilizing up, breaking down. Tax credits are a big part of this. You've seen in some information that I've put out about the risk at the loss of tax credits, the inability to utilize bonding. So we're hoping what we hear over the next month, I guess, that cooler heads have prevailed.
Commissioner Hoy.
Thank you. Andy, I was hoping you could outline for the folks maybe watching online and watching on television exactly what this will provide to the city in terms of how much it will increase our inventory, how many families could potentially be housed, and just exactly what is it that how is this going to benefit the community?
Sure. Thank you, sir. So the Yaquina project itself is 51 new units. The South Fair part of it is rehabbing an old property of ours that we think we can do better for our clients in a better building. The other 4 properties that I was referring to, which it's more public housing that's going to be renovated in a phase 2. We own, the Housing Authority owns a 2.875 acre parcel not too far from our public housing up on the north side, almost to Kaiser. And that can yield right around about 78 units. So we're getting all these really backed up a little bit because of the financing inability and just the market itself. So we're hoping to get something going really quickly so we can get these other projects that are behind us to give them a chance for a life. The total number of units would be close to 300 units.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Got a motion on the floor to approve Resolution 2221 made by Commissioner Anderson, seconded by Commissioner Lewis. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Got some items in the information report. Anything there, Andy, you want to look at?
The only thing I would bring your attention to is just the activities in Congress, what they're not doing, what they are doing.
You going to leave it at that?
Sir.
Okay. Commissioner Nanke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just again, wonderful story on the family self-sufficiency program
Yeah.
for Sean, I think it is.
Yeah.
It's heartening always, and
It
it's
is.
nice when someone has that fortitude to push through setbacks and
Right.
get a house
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we,
of their own, I should add.
one by one, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's okay, and so we'll take that.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, Eddie, thanks. The great work you're doing here, 300 units that's no small thing. That's a big deal. Keep it up. You and your staff are doing wonderful things for the city. We appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
With that, I call the Housing Authority of the City of Salem adjourned.
Call this meeting of the City of Salem Urban Renewal Agency for December 11th to order. If the recorder would please call the roll.
Board Member Kaiser. Board Member Anderson.
Likewise.
Board Member Nanki.
Here.
Board Member McCoy.
Hello?
Board Board Member Ossick.
Here.
Board Member Hoy.
Here.
Board Member Cook. Here. Board Member Lewis. Here. And Chair Bennett.
Here. Okay, Commissioner McCoy, no additions or deletions.
There are no additions or deletions to the...
Okay, we have time for public comment. And I'm getting Chris Sarles.
Good evening. My name is Chris Sarles, and I am President and CEO of Oregon Fruit Products. And just want to thank you in advance for the opportunity to talk about grant monies. Oregon Fruit has been on the site in West Salem since 1935, and for over 80 years has employed roughly 85 people with good jobs and great benefits. And over time, during the busy harvest season, it'll go upwards of 200 people or so. We've employed generations of families, and oftentimes we'll see dad, son, grandfather that has passed through our facility, and it makes us very proud. And you might have seen recently we had an employee who retired after 56 years with Oregon Fruit, and so our roots are deep here in Salem. We've worked hard to diversify the business, and over the last 3 years, we've been doing quite a bit to get outside of just the can business, and we've really diversified quite a bit and grown the business nicely. And as a result, you can imagine that facility that we're in since 1935 is tired, and we're in need of a new home. So we started working about 1.5 years ago with SEDCOR in the city of Salem, and they have been great advocates helping us look for options, opportunities. And it was in July when I read the news that Norpac had sold their canning business to Seneca Fruit and saw the loss of all the jobs, that we thought, maybe there's an opportunity there for us to look at that facility. So we've been in the due diligence phase now for a few months, and it's our desire to close on that facility at the end of January. With that, at the same time, we were also being contacted by the Clackamas County, who's also in an active recruitment of businesses, and so it was with that I sat down and had a chance to speak to folks and came up with the what we're speaking about this evening. With that, the monies would be used for both general cleanup of the facility. For anyone who's been by the site over on Madrona, you can tell it needs a little bit of love. In addition, the physical structure itself needs work inside, as well as there's a lot of plant and equipment that we would be investing in. We expect to put about $5 million into that facility for us to be up and running and to also be compliant with all the Food Safety Modernization Act requirements as well. So with that, I just say thank you for your consideration. We would love to remain here in Salem and continue the rich tradition that's gone on now for over 80 years.
Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you. Thank you for coming down. This will be in my ward, and so I'm excited about that. And I actually pulled it from the agenda so we can give it a little more publicity to let people know what you're doing. And I also appreciated your fruits with deep roots. I'm sure that was a fun meal.
Great. Any other questions? Great. Thank you very much.
Rich, thank you.
Okay, consent calendar.
I move approval of this consent calendar with the following pull. Item 4.2A by Member Anderson.
Second by Kaiser. Any discussion?
Want to
You
know
want to talk about them?
So we have the minutes of the November 13th URA meeting.
How are those? Are those pretty good?
And we have under action items, the reappointments to the Downtown Advisory Board and the North Gateway Redevelopment Advisory Board.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Councilor Anderson.
Thank you. I move that the minor amendment to the McGillcrest Urban Renewal Plan as cited in item number 4.2A.
Second by Hoy. Would you like to speak to it?
Thank you. I already made many of my comments earlier on in the public testimony, but I would like Director Rutherford to talk a little bit about what this means both to the West Salem Urban Renewal District, from where the plant Oregon Fruit is moving, and then to the McGillcrest area where it will be located.
Good evening, Kristen Rutherford, Urban Development Director. So I'll start with impacts to West Salem first. As Mr. Sarles had mentioned, the company has been in West Salem for a very long time. They've been an anchor employer in West Salem. Through the West Salem Urban Renewal Area, we have been looking at this area and anticipating a move like this for a few years now, knowing that there are facilities there that are reaching their functional obsolescence. And we have been working with the community in West Salem and with the Urban Renewal Advisory Board in West Salem to talk about what's next for that area. And to that end, we are currently in the middle of working with the Community Development Department on revising and streamlining the zoning code in West Salem to allow a little additional variety in uses so that you could have some craft industrial in these spaces. We're not anticipating that the future use will be larger scale manufacturing as has been there in the past, because the character of the area is changing. So there will still be employment. It'll just be a different type of employment. With regards to the McGillcrest area, as Mr. Sarles also mentioned, we found ourselves earlier this year with a vacant facility when NORPAC announced their closure. So the food processing industry has been Salem's legacy for a very long time, and that it's a pretty big impact having a plant like the NORPAC plant closing. So as we knew that Oregon Fruit was looking to move out of West Salem and that they had other options in the state. They had options in the Portland area and in Clackamas County. It was very important to us to retain those jobs in the Salem area and not lose another legacy food processor. So that's when we started having the discussion with Oregon Fruit and with SEDCOR about whether or not we may be able to modify the McGillcrest Urban Renewal Area to create a grant program for these unique situations where you have a vacant facility that is not going to contribute to the tax base in the same way as a vacant as it would fully functional and operating, and to create or to retain jobs.
Councilor Anderson.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank SEDCOR for this. And the thing that is important to me about both this is, and this happened at an earlier meeting we had some time ago with SEDCOR, when we were told that 85% of SEDCOR's efforts are both time and money are spent on helping existing companies that are here, to keep them here and to give them chance to develop within the city of Salem, and that's exactly what has been done here. So I commend everybody involved in this for a terrific way to recognize and help a long-term Salem employer and to keep employees and the employer here in the city of Salem.
Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this seems like a win-win-win. We're getting to retain some great jobs with a long-standing company. We're getting a chance to rethink and relook at what we've done in West Salem and the opportunities there, and we get to really add some new energy into South Salem. So I can't see a downside to this. I'm really excited and happy to vote for this. Thank you.
Very good. Any other discussion? want to just thank Mr. Sarles for the work he's done on this, and Chad Freeman for the work SEDCOR's done on this project. This really is, I think, as Councilor Anderson said, a very important decision. We're really pleased that Oregon Fruit's going to stay here, and the impact is a win-win-win, as Councilor Hoy said. So thank you very much, Mr. Sarles. We really appreciate it and appreciate the leadership of Oregon Fruit deciding to stay in Salem. Thank you. Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Oops, what else we got here? That's about it, isn't it? Okay. Urban Renewals Agency's adjourned. Call this meeting of the Salem City Council for Monday, December 11th to order. And if the recorder would please call a roll.
Councillor Kaiser. Present. Councillor Anderson.
Also.
Councillor Nanke.
Here.
Councillor McCoy.
Here.
Councillor Ossick.
Here.
Councillor Hoy.
Here.
Councillor Cook. Here. Councillor Lewis.
Here.
Mayor Bennett.
Here. Okay. Councillor McCoy, you're on deck with additions and deletions.
I move approval of the additions to the agenda.
Second.
Second by Nanke. Any discussion?
We have, that's
You want to tell me
We
about
have
that?
two. Here we've got one, 3.3I, which is the City Council review the planning minister's decision for property located at 3700 and 3800 blocks of Dogwood Drive. And 6E, under information, is an addition, and it's an appeal of a planning administrator's decision for property located 500 block of Glen Creek Road and the 500-600 block of 9th Street Northwest.
Very good. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. This is an opportunity for members of the council to make comments. Councilor McCoy.
Went with the mayor and Councilor Hoy. We went and saw the tree lighting at the Riverfront Park here. Was last Friday. Great crowd, a big turnout. I mean, it was really a mob scene downtown Salem, looking for some place to park to go down there. Oh, I'd say that Councilor Hoy rode the bus down here. I was proud of him for that. I know.
I did not contribute to the problem.
Santa arrived safely, and the tree was lit safely, and it was a great time had by all, officiated by our mayor. You know, I highly recommend it. It's fun to do. Puts you right in the seasonal spirit early on.
Great. Anyone else? Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was very honored to participate last night with you at Salem Speaks Up, where residents of our city had a chance to speak out about various issues impacting them, and they got to have an audience with the chief of police and some of his senior staff and with the mayor, and I just thought it was a great event, and so I was really glad to be there. Thank you.
Great. Glad you were there. Thank you for coming. Anyone else? Mr. City Manager.
First of all, happy holidays. This will be the last council meeting of 2017. City offices and the library will be closed on Christmas Day and New Year's Day. Police, fire, and public works emergency crews will be working both those days. Fortunately, the forecast for Christmas is sunny and 43, so it looks like we won't need our plows on Christmas Day, but we will be on standby just in case.
Excellent. Okay, I've got a proclamation, and I wanted to invite up Joan Crazy, Eric Hine, and Morgan Parks. Is that everybody? Is that it? Ken and Linda Beerley. There is page 2 of who's coming up. And Stephanie Hazen. There we go. proclamation. I'm not sure who gets it. Okay, this is a proclamation. Whereas the monarch butterfly is one of the most iconic and studied butterflies in North America, widely admired for its beauty, and whereas the monarch butterfly is extremely beneficial, pollinating many cultivated flowers and crops, and serving as an indicator species for the ecological health of large geographical areas, and whereas the monarch butterfly's annual migration, which has been described as one of the most spectacular in the insect world, is now classified as a threatened phenomenon by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, and whereas 20 years ago, more than 1 billion monarch butterflies migrated to Mexico, but in 2014, only 60 million made the trip. And whereas a major reason for the decline is the widespread loss of the milkweed, the only plant monarch butterflies lay their eggs on, as well as it being the monarch's primary larval food source, and whereas the entire community can play a critical role in providing habitat for this species by planting milkweed and nectar plants. Now therefore, I, Chuck Bennett, Mayor of the City of Salem, do hereby proclaim on December 11, 2017, that I will participate in the Mayor's Monarch Pledge, and through the signing of the National Wildlife Federation's Mayor's Monarch Pledge, commit the City of Salem to voluntarily help restore habitat for the monarch and encourage all people of Salem to do the same, dated this 11th day of December, 2017. And I have presented the proclamation, and I wanted to give any of you who'd like to, I do want to mention what the City of Salem has already done. So far, the City of Salem has planted milkweed at Mindow Brown Park, and more recently, the Oak Savannah area in West Salem. The latter was done by the Glen Gibson Watershed Council. Ken and Linda Beerley are here today to help us in celebrating this. And the city will add milkweed plants to the Civic Center planters at the north side of the building. Further, city staff are going to assess our parks and look for more opportunities for plantings for pollinators. And just so you know when it's happening, they have come up with these signs. So you will see these around where there's going to be plantings going on. So I'm real pleased with this. I think it's one of those things we can do and have a real impact. So, and you want to give out some seeds?
I'm Stephanie Hazen, and we've got milkweed seed to give to everyone here today. We've got showy milkweed, which is native to the Willamette Valley, and we have swamp milkweed, which is native to the United States, but not the Willamette Valley, but it does a good job. These were seeds were raised either in my backyard or somewhere else in Salem. So I'm going to come around and give you all milkweed seeds, and I'd like to hear from you next year. Also, if you grow 10 or more plants and don't get caterpillars, I can provide you with caterpillars and eggs.
Wow. Hey, okay. There will be no excuses next year.
So. My husband, Ray Temple, is going to give around the back, and I'm going to give around the front, starting with you.
Did you want to say?
Is there anyone who wants to? Yeah, go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Eric Hine from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and I'm the pollination coordinator for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We oversee in Region 1 3 different states on the mainland, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, and then we also oversee the Pacific Highlands. This is a significant contribution towards monarch conservation. We appreciate you stepping forward. This is a voluntary program, but it is one of the iconic species that many of us grew up with. I'm from the Midwest, and I remember monarchs flying over my house, and you know, it's a shame that they're imperiled right now, but advances like this and working together with partnerships with the City of Salem, I think we can really advance the conservation of the species. So we appreciate it. And we brought you a 10-gallon milkweed. It's dormant right now, but if you plant it in a sunny location, it will grow next spring, and hopefully monarchs will use it.
Excellent. Well, we have spots here at City Hall that are sunny.
Fantastic.
Mr. Fernandez, would you like to? Mr. Fernandez is our keeper of the milk.
Very big honor.
Thank you very much.
Passing it down.
We would like to thank the City of Salem. We'd like to thank the City of Salem for the opportunity to plant milkweed in the reservoir site that is now at Oak Savannah in West Salem. We had volunteers put in 500 plants the week, Friday after Thanksgiving, to work off the turkey. And we also participated just this last Saturday with City Parks and Eola Ridge Park, getting the start on a pollinator garden in that park. So the city has really taken a strong and important leadership role, and we really appreciate it. So thank you to all the citizens of Salem.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, great. Well, oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll move on then. We have opportunity for the public to comment on items that are on the agenda. The first person signed up is Jackie Franke, and behind her is Bob Courtright. Okay, good.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. I'm Jackie Franke, and I'm representing Catholic Community Services Foundation. It seems that every day last week, the Statesman Journal had an article about the homeless in our community. And first, I want to thank you. I very much appreciate that the city has placed the homeless issue as a high priority in the strategic plan, so thank you. Tonight, you'll also be addressing a topic that might also encourage more development of low-income affordable housing by nonprofit organizations. Even though an organization is nonprofit, they must pay property taxes on low-income affordable housing complexes built after 2012. Catholic Community Services Foundation has built 2 properties in Salem since 2012. All of the foundation's other complexes, low-income affordable housing, and those owned by other nonprofit organizations in Salem are grandfathered from paying property taxes until 2022, when the legislature will decide the future fate of all low-income affordable complexes owned by nonprofit organizations. I used the city's Homeless Initiative Task Force data, and that had list of all of the properties, low-income affordable housing complexes, and I called most of the nonprofit organizations last year, and it appears that possibly the only 2 complexes built after 2012 in Salem were those owned by Catholic Community Services. The 2017-18 property taxes dedicated to the city of Salem from those 2 complexes is around $9,600. On November 22nd, the Marion County Board of Commissioners passed a similar ordinance that the city of Salem is contemplating, and the property tax exemption that the Marion County passed would require an annual application by the nonprofit organizations to ensure that they are continually complying with all the state and federal regulations for low-income affordable housing. I also want to add that what Catholic Community Services did was we notified all of the taxing districts that would be affected from the loss of property taxes if Catholic Community Services applies, if this is passed, and if Catholic Community Services applies and earns tax exemption. We went ahead and notified everyone that this is occurring so that they would understand the impact. The impact is as low as $25.67 for the Marion County Soil and Water District and $7,292.54 for the Salem School District.
Thank you very much.
I want to thank you for addressing this issue.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions?
Great work.
Mr. Courtwright.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have written comments and pictures, if I may.
You going to share that?
My name's Bob Courtwright. I live in West Salem, and I'm here today to talk to you about an item on your agenda for Fisher Road, where you're talking about safety options. Your staff is recommending installing 2 four-way stops and speed advisory boards as a way to deal with pedestrian safety issues on Fisher Road. That's a very good first step, but much more is needed, because the recommendation does nothing to provide a safe place for people to walk and bike along Fisher Road. If you'll take a look at the pictures, you'll see what I'm talking about. The need on this street is great. This is an important route in this neighborhood for people to walk and bike to stores, and there are 3 grocery stores that are accessed by this route. You'll also see that the existing route is extremely deficient. It has very few sidewalks, and the shoulders are often unpaved or simply non-existent. If you look through these pictures, you'll see the first picture shows 2 women passing each other in mobility scooters on Fisher Road. These are photographs from Google Street View, so this is just a random kind of event. The second photo shows the same thing, but you'll see a pedestrian walking on a very narrow shoulder, and you'll see a gentleman who's walking his dog while on his bicycle, crossing the road to get to a safer sidewalk. And then finally, the bottom photo shows a woman in a stroller pushing her child, walking with another child through a parking lot because there's no safe place to walk on Fisher Road. The bottom line is we really need to do something to provide a safer way for people to use this street. Your staff report suggests that a future bond issue might be passed to address this problem. That's something that might happen 5 years from now, if it happens at all. There are things that we can do in the short term, principally paving the shoulders so there's a safe place to walk, but adding street lights, adding pedestrian crossing islands, and those sorts of improvements. So as you consider this item later tonight, I hope you'll consider asking Public Works to do more work so we can provide a better way for the people who are using this street to get around. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Anderson.
Thank you for coming down, Mr. Courtwright. I can't find it right now, but when I read through the staff report, one of the things seemed to suggest, was talking about speed and seemed to say that, well, since we're not hitting the 85% rule, maybe we ought to make the speed faster. Do you have any comments on the effective speed on a road like that?
It's certainly significant, especially where there aren't any pedestrian facilities. But I think most people or most professionals would say that when you have speed in excess of what the road is intended to provide, there's something wrong with the design of the road. I certainly think the stop signs will help, but I think there are other features we need to add if we want to slow traffic down.
And those would be the features you already discussed.
We would include those as well, yes.
Thank you.
And the stop signs are designed to slow people down.
Well, they will have the effect of
slowing
over the
them
length of the street of slowing traffic.
Yeah, okay. Anything else? Yeah.
Thank you for coming down, Mr. Courtwright. You mentioned, I think, pedestrian islands. Is that what you called them?
Yes.
What is the, I can envision what that might mean, but what What's the intended purpose of those, and what will the impact be?
A couple of effects. One is that they provide a safe place in the middle of the road. A big thing they do to drivers is to signal that there are pedestrians in the area, and having something visually in front of you in a very straight road, which Fisher Road is, just gives you a frame of reference. It's one of the things that will help slow drivers down.
Thank you.
All righty. Anything further?
No.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to address the council? Okay. Councilor McCoy, the consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second by Hoy. Discussion, you want to go ahead
Yeah.
and you go through it?
Items on the consent calendar. We've got a pretty large consent calendar tonight. We have minutes of the November 27th City Council meeting. Under resolutions, we have an update to city. This would adopt a resolution updating the City of Salem's natural hazards mitigation plan, which is this large report. And that is a plan that the city has approved by FEMA, and it needs to be updated every 5 years. And the city staff, most city departments, along with the hospital and Marion County, I think, are participating in getting this developed. And it's an impressive document. Public records policy. The resolution amends resolution to update the city's public records policy to make it concurrent with the new state public records requirements going into effect January 1st of next year. Under action items, we've got a second amendment to the Salem Renewal Energy and Technology Center covenants, conditions, and restrictions that changes the name to the Salem Business Campus and removes all references to renewable energy use and technology use. This is to be able to better market it for folks that want to maybe bring a business in there and use that center. We have appointments and reappointments to a variety of commissions and boards. We have an intergovernmental agreement. This authorizes the city manager to amend the intergovernmental agreement between the City of Salem and Suburban East Salem Water District to extend the term of the agreement to December 31st, 2018. There's the city and the Water District are in negotiations now for a new agreement, but at this time they're not totally finalized, so this extends it until they can work on that, so they can continue to work on that agreement. We have an intergovernmental agreement with the State of Oregon, Office of the Fire Marshal, for use of a firefighting foam trailer provided by the Union Pacific Railroad, where it adds to the things the fire department has to deal with fires, in this case on the railroad. We have an order for appeal of the plan. City Council will amend the decision of the Planning Commission for Class 3 design review of a driveway approach permit case. We have authorized the city manager to execute an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement with the Salem-Keizer School District, extending the closing date to March 31st, 2018 for the transferring of multiple properties between the city and the Salem-Keizer School District. We authorize the city manager to execute the attached amendments to an intergovernmental agreement with the State of Oregon, extending the closing date for the acquisition of real property in the 4100 block of Fisher Road Northeast. We ratify the city manager's execution of an attached intergovernmental agreement with the State of Oregon Military Department Office of Emergency Management, that's a mouthful, regarding the activation of the Emergency Management Assistance Compact for the December 2017 California wildfires. We basically sent one of our fire trucks and a team to assist the folks in the Los Angeles area in fighting the fires that are raging down there right now, and that unit is down there right now assisting in those efforts. And finally, we have another one that approves that City Council order for the City Council review of the planning administrator's decision for phased subdivision for property located at 37 and 3800 blocks of Dogwood Drive South.
Okay. That's quite a mouthful. Councilor Anderson.
Thank you. Two things. The first one is on item 3.3A. I had a long discussion either this afternoon or this morning. That's the rebranding of the Salem Renewable Energy and Technology Center to the Salem Business Campus. And I use the word rebranding, I think, appropriately because, as I understand it, it was hard to market that with that long moniker, especially with what it said. It seemed to narrow the scope of people who might be able to want to invest in that area. So I'm in favor of it, but I would hope that we would continue to look at renewable energy and technology in that area as the original intent, but I understand how we have to make it bigger. And the last item, I guess, is the Faith subdivision on Dogwood. I would like to register a no on that.
You too?
I would like to second Councilor Anderson's comments, or agree with them wholeheartedly.
So you want to vote no?
Correct.
Okay. I think that was his comment. I'll be voting no.
That was my comment.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and I actually, in regards to the renewable energy and technology part, my employer happens to be at the address listed, and so I will recuse from that even though it's in my ward.
Okay. Councilor Kaiser.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a quick comment on item 3.3H, which is the EMAC, City of Salem sending an engine down to help in California. I think this is the second time this year we've done that, so thank you to Chief Niblock for that. My employer also has sent crews down there, and I don't think this is going to be a one-time thing, so I'm glad that Oregon has mutual aid assistance for California, because I think we'll be doing this more in the future, but glad the city can help.
Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to call out the fact that we are appointing somebody from Ward 6 onto one of our boards. And I'm very, very happy about that.
It apparently slipped through. Where is that?
So thank you.
Okay, well, that's good news.
It's very good news.
Kind of red letter day. Okay. Anything else? We hear you've got how everybody's voting. Okay. Okay, all those in favor of the consent agenda where they are not voting no or can vote, say aye. Aye. All opposed. Motion passes. Okay.
Let's hear it.
I'm going to open the public hearing on the Northeast Salem Community Association, NESCA, and Lansing Neighborhood Plan.
The City Council will now conduct a public hearing concerning the Northeast Salem Community Association NESCA Lansing Neighborhood Plan. The criteria applicable to the proposed amendment is SRC 64.020F1. Testimony must be directed toward the identified criteria or other criteria the person believes to apply to the decision. A failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. The hearing will be conducted with staff presentation first, followed by other interested persons. Neighborhood associations are limited to 5 minutes per association for testimony. Individuals testifying are limited to 3 minutes. A yellow light will appear at the podium when 1 minute remains, and a red light will appear when your time is expired. Please conclude your testimony when the red light appears.
Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Brian Colborn, and I'm planner with the Community Development Department, and I'm joined this evening by my colleague, Eunice Kim, who is also a planner with the City of Salem, and together we're going to be presenting the staff report for the NESCA Lansing Neighborhood Plan. There are also several representatives from both NESCA and Lansing here this evening. This is the culmination of a large project, and the two neighborhoods, representatives from the two neighborhoods have put in a lot of work, and we're very, very happy about this this evening and getting to this point. So without further ado, I'll just move on and describe what we're talking about. The neighborhood plan itself is something. In Salem, we have a very strong neighborhood association program, and neighborhood associations, if they choose to, can adopt a neighborhood plan, which is adopted then by a city council and becomes a component of the city's planning framework, becomes part of the comprehensive plan. So it becomes a real document that really carries some weight in city decisions, and the neighborhood associations and the city can rely upon that document when applications for development come in for review, and see that it is consistent with the policies in those neighborhood plans. The city also uses neighborhood plans to prioritize city projects. And a great example of that, how the city has used neighborhood plan recently, is with the prior neighborhood plan that the city worked on, which is the NESCA neighborhood plan, which had a recommendation for State Street to become revitalized. That recommendation gave the city the ability to successfully get grant funding, and that turned into the State Street corridor project that is now underway. I'd like to just sort of pause here, though, and just give a bit of a background and overview of the two neighborhoods. We've been working with the NESCA and Lansing neighborhoods on this project, and just give kind of an idea of characteristics of these two neighborhoods. They're both built in the 40s and 50s and 60s, very much post-war development, a lot of single-family residential housing on slightly larger lots than what you'd find in the sort of the original, more central part of Salem. There's several large roads that really go through these two neighborhoods, and that's, I think, a really defining characteristic. It's kind of a blessing and a curse. These neighborhoods have great transit, great access to regional highways, and connected to the other parts of the city. But what also happens is if you live in one part of, say, NESCA, it may be hard to actually just walk a few blocks to another part of NESCA or Lansing to go to the store, because there are these very large arterial roads. And so that was one thing that that was looked at in this process, is how can the neighborhood and the city come up with some ideas to really increase connectivity for pedestrians and for local trips and for cyclists in these two neighborhoods. We also found that the schools are very central to the life of these two neighborhoods. There are 3 public schools, Hoover Elementary, Waldo Middle School, as well as Washington Elementary School. And they are really a central part of these neighborhoods. They also reflect the demographics of the neighborhoods. The neighborhoods are very diverse, more diverse than the city as a whole. Over 40% Latino households in both Lansing and NESCA, and that is also represented in over 50%. Majority of the students in those schools are from Latino households. The fairgrounds, so those are the two school sites I mentioned. The state fairgrounds and the Oregon State Hospital North Campus site are 2 large sites that are clearly important when talking about planning in these two neighborhoods, and we spent a lot of time discussing those properties as well. The planning process for a neighborhood plan, there's a lot of public outreach that we do. We started the NESCA Lansing neighborhood plan in April of 2016, and that was followed by monthly meetings that went almost for a year, covering different topics that eventually turned into the chapters of the plan document itself, covering things like housing and transportation and commercial land uses and different things, parks and open space. Then from about June of this year to now, we were going through more of the formal required adoption process steps with public hearings and work sessions before the Planning Commission and other groups. We found that in those monthly meetings that I mentioned, they're a very effective way of getting very good detailed information, about an hour-and-a-half meeting. But a lot of the folks who show up to those meetings are the committed folks who have been involved in the neighborhood associations for a long time and really feel very comfortable in that setting. And so we also knew it was very important, everyone knew it was very important that we do additional outreach and some enhanced public outreach to really make sure we reach all of the groups within these two neighborhoods. So in addition to the monthly meetings, we all, the neighborhood board members, the staff, we all kind of work together to try and help get the word out. And that resulted in going to a lot of school meetings, parent-teacher meetings. There's several Latino cultural groups that exist, one called Enlace and another called La Casita, and we went to those groups, and those groups helped us multiple times regularly and were very supportive of the project and gave us great input and gave us a way to reach the very diverse communities within these two neighborhoods. So all of that outreach, all of that input that we got from the community was then put together through a steering committee process that met every month, and really took that information and put it into the document that you see before you this evening. There are 10 chapters that cover different topics. There's also 3 maps that show opportunities and a future vision for land use. And so Eunice is going to finish this presentation and go into a little more detail about the specific policies and recommendations that are included in the plan.
Hi, again, I'm Eunice Kim, planner of the Community Development Department. And like Brian said, our draft plan that you have before you, I'm not going to go through the roughly 80 pages of policies, goals, and actions, but I want to pick out some of the highlights. So one of the things that was really new in this neighborhood plan that we haven't done in previous plans was focused on heritage and identity. Through all of our outreach, through our monthly meetings, going to the schools, going to the parks, the other cultural groups, there's really broad agreement that these two neighborhoods, NESCA and Lansing, were family-oriented places, they were diverse, they were welcoming places for all types of people, different backgrounds. And it was really, these neighborhoods are really conveniently located. It was easy to get to Lancaster, it was easy to get to downtown and other destinations. And so we were really excited that there was this broad agreement on what the identity of these neighborhoods are. And both neighborhoods really want to kind of promote and celebrate that identity, which is also something new. They want to do it through everything from maybe having a neighborhood festival or maybe having walking tours that really highlight different destinations within the neighborhood. And so this is something that we actually hope to be able to implement through a neighborhood heritage program that we have in our planning division. So as Brian mentioned, NESCA and Lansing have large single-family neighborhoods. There are other housing types, but there are large single-family neighborhoods that were developed in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And NESCA and Lansing felt really strongly that these neighborhoods are really protected and preserved. There was support for a variety of housing types and really expanding that, but they wanted to make sure that it was done in a manner that was really compatible with the neighborhoods. So smaller multifamily was compatible in design, for example, and they wanted to really focus the larger scale multifamily and mixed-use projects on the major streets like Market Street or Hawthorne, where the impacts on the single-family neighborhoods would particularly be less. So as Brian mentioned, there are all these major streets that really cut through the neighborhoods, and it creates some barriers as well as some opportunities. And so a lot of the focus of the neighborhoods throughout this planning process, not just when we focused on transportation, was really on bicycle and pedestrian connectivity and safety. There are a lot of residents and business owners that really said that people really walk and bike in these neighborhoods. A lot of people rely on transit. And so what can we do to really make it easier and safer for these people who choose these modes of transportation? So Two streets that they really called out through the neighborhood planning process was D Street and Sunnyview, and how their hope is that these two really become key east-west corridors for bike and ped routes. There are plenty other streets like Market Street, Hawthorne, et cetera, Silverton, some of the major streets that do carry traffic, and D and Sunnyview will continue obviously too, but the neighborhoods wanted to make sure infrastructure improvements like sidewalks and bike lanes were focused on D and Sunnyview. And again, like there are these major streets to cross. So like Market Street, there's a lot of destinations on both sides of the street. Lansing is to the north of Market Street and NESCA is to the south. But that doesn't mean that the people stick to their neighborhoods. And so crossing Market Street, for example, is a challenge. So there really was recommendations to enhance some crosswalks, maybe do some median refuge islands, and just look for ways to improve connectivity generally for pedestrians. And then, like I mentioned, there's a lot of people who take transit, so there's broad support in the two neighborhoods for enhanced transit access. Like a lot of neighborhoods, NESCA and Lansing are really supportive of enhancing and promoting parks and open space. There was a thought, though, that parks shouldn't just be for kids. While there's support for, good playgrounds, more equipment, there's the idea that parks should really serve people of all ages. So maybe there could be exercise equipment for adults or large sheltered areas for family gatherings, so they could really be an asset to all of the neighborhood. NESCA and Lansing also want more parks and different types of parks. For example, there is a projected need for a neighborhood park in the southern portion of Lansing. Lansing, obviously, those largely built out. So the neighborhood thought, how could we be creative to find different ways of having parks and open space in the neighborhoods, maybe pocket parks and smaller parks and open spaces, for example, on Sunnyview. Both neighborhoods also really want to increase the tree canopy. The city has a goal for increasing tree canopy citywide. Both NESCA and Lansing fall very short of that goal and want to help kind of promote the planting of trees, the replacing of trees, and the preservation of trees. And like Brian mentioned, just connectivity in general. Are there ways to develop more trails? One of the ideas from the neighborhoods was, can you connect, for example, Lansing Park in Lansing all the way down to Gear Park to the south? So there's kind of better north-south connections. So we thought of different creative ways of really bridging the gaps that are created by all the major streets cutting through the neighborhoods. So those are some of the highlights from the draft neighborhood plan. The staff recommendation today is to adopt the goals, policies, and generalized land use map of the NESCA Lansing neighborhood plan as a component of the Salem area comprehensive plan, and then the rest of the document as a support document. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members of the public, do they get extra time? Okay, neighborhood associations will get 5 minutes. Ian, are you representing NESCA? Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Bennett, members of the City Council. My name is Ian Johnson. I live at 1495 Evergreen Avenue Northeast. I'm here to represent NESCA as the Land Use Chair, and here to convey our enthusiastic support for the plan. This has been a really great experience, and I'd like to thank city staff who successfully undersold their effort grandly in each of these presentations. They really did a good outreach effort, and I would give them credit for it's very easy to kind of dial it in as city staff for outreach. You do your meetings and you're done. And I think what was really important about this plan is they met people where they were, whether that's in the parks, whether that's in the schools, those important community places, because in NESCA Lansing, people are into their community resources, whether that's parks, whether that's schools or whatnot. They may not necessarily attend a meeting, but we're out living in the community. And this plan and the process by which we went forward with it, with the community outreach, really kind of brought to light that people like this neighborhood. I like it. I've lived there 10 years. And it's a place people want to be, and we want to enhance what's already there. We have great parks. We have great community amenities. We have businesses. We're central. We have good transportation. But one of the things that came up early on, and what I refer to as road islands, is a little bit of a story. I've got small children. I've got a Dairy Queen 6 blocks from my house, but when they were very little, I tried to take them there, and my, at the time, 4-year-old found some interesting road garbage as we were trying to cross the street, and of course, wrenches free from my hand and reaches down. That was the last time I did that until they were a little older and could stay focused on the crossing signal. So that's a great story of, how many ice creams did Dairy Queen lose out in my small children? How do we enhance those kinds of things? So whether this plan talks about sidewalks or lighting or parks or bike trails, it's all about how do we get around to the good stuff. If you look at that map, you'll see some kind of crazy spaghetti all over the place, which if you look at the history, this has been in and out of the city, in and out of the county, has been kind of the victim of lack of planning or half plans or other kinds of things. And I think what's really powerful about this plan is it, through its outreach, comes together and brings together what people like about their communities, community identity, those features that we find most valuable, and talks about how do we knit this together, how do we enhance what we already have. I think it's particularly telling is that map. If you look at it, kind of where are those key things and how do we get around? It's like, there's still areas in my community, it's like, oh yeah, I could get to Thorpe Park, but how do I get there? Well, I gotta go through the Fred Meyer parking lot, around this way, so I don't go. Even though as the crow flies, it's actually very close, but I'm not going to go there because by the time I get there, it's a very circuitous route. So I think really what this plan does is it really works on preserving what's important in our neighborhood and also managing change over time, because we do expect the community to change. It is changing. I'm seeing a lot of reinvestment, and that's a very positive thing. And I think, something I heard at one of my, a meeting I was recently at, is that change is very exciting and empowering when it happens, when you get to shape it. And in this case, this plan, we get to shape it as a community, but it can be a little disconcerting when it happens to you. And so in an age and time where government is often described as something that happens to you, we really appreciated the opportunity to participate this and really get our ideas down, and to be able to make sure they're closely aligned with what the goals and policies of the city are. So thank you very much for your support on this, and also to staff for assisting us through the process.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. Anyone have any questions for Ian? Yeah.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. Ian, I just wanted to thank you for your leadership on this. I've watched you work through this process for several months now, and it's been really heartwarming to see all of the energy you've put into this. And as land use chair in NESCA and this and the North Campus, you've done some amazing work, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Kaiser.
Thank you. I want to echo Councilor Hoy's comments, Ian, but thank you also for your leadership. I know this has kind of been going on for a couple of years, or the idea of it, and I also know in that area you kind of helped to spearhead kind of the revitalization of NESCA as a neighborhood association, and I think that wouldn't have happened unless you had kind of stepped in to do that, and I think this is a bit of the fruits of your labor. So I think congratulations on a really nice plan, and I think the residents and your neighbors have a lot to celebrate.
Well, thank you.
Councilor Anderson.
One sentence. What she said, what he said.
I think we'll all ditto that, Ian.
Thank you.
You've done a great job. Okay. That takes care of everybody. Anyone else? Okay. Patty Tipton.
Hi, I think you're familiar with me already. I'm Patty Tipton. I'm the chair for Lansing Neighborhood, and I thank you for this opportunity to come forward and talk to the mayor and council members again. I want to tell other neighborhoods that they should not be afraid of this process. They should try and do this with their own neighborhoods, even though it's taken us 2 years, and we would not have been able to do it without the staff that you have given us to. We would not have been able to get through the process without them. They have put together a very decisive and a complete program process for us, and they not only talk to us as individuals, but as a community. And they have put forth what our goals and our plans are for the next 20 years. We'd like to see those next 20 years to be a positive growth for our neighborhood. That includes sidewalks, more parks, and like she said, more festivals to emphasize the different kind of cultures we have within our neighborhoods, so that we could have a more socially accepted abilities to get along. There is a lot of division in this country, and I feel that if we can just do our part to emphasize what we have in common, what we all want, which is not good housing, a good place to live, and a good place to raise our children. That is what we want in the end. My biggest accomplishment as a chair is Lansing Park. I don't think many of you know where it is or what it is and how much it means to me personally. When I first started as chair, there was nothing there. No trees, no playground equipment, nothing. As of 10 years, we have planted 70 trees and plants, put up park benches, we have fencing, we have lights, we have playground equipment. And every day I drive by it, and I am speechless, personally, because I see people there playing on the equipment, children getting along, adults talking to each other, and people just getting along, enjoying nature as a whole. In the process, as being a part of the Salem Parks Board, I have seen not only one street light in Lansing, but another one at Livingston. And they are in the process of putting another street light in Livingston, and they are revitalizing that park to improve its basketball court so that people can play basketball in the spring and summer. I cannot tell you how important this plan is to us as a neighborhood, and how grateful I am to Eunice and Brian for all the hard work. And please encourage other neighborhoods in your wards to do this too, because like I said, this is supposed to last us for the next 20 years. And I would like to see the goals that we have set in this plan go forward and succeed, because I think we can do it. And thank you very much, and your staff.
Thank you. Any questions for Patty? Okay, thank you very much. Virginia Barker.
Good evening. Mayor Bennett, City Councilors, Planners, Kim, and Colburn. I'm Virginia Barker. I reside at 3010 Star Court Northeast, and I am currently the Secretary of Lansing Neighborhood Association, and I was a member of the steering committee for this plan. First, I'd like to commend planners Eunice Kim and Brian Colburn for the exemplary job they have done taking the myriad comments, desires, ideas, and other input and formulating them into this plan. If you can imagine, we're in these public meetings and we have little post-it notes and they're scattered all over these pieces of paper all around the room with just little thoughts here, here, and here. And they took those things and they put it into the document that you have before you. Now, to me, that's almost a miracle. Many hours were spent in public meetings as well as other venues such as events at schools and parks to gather input from as many citizens as possible. Eunice and Brian took all this information and turned it into this very well-written document, which was then vetted by the steering committee, which was comprised of members from each of the neighborhood associations. Therefore, I would recommend approval of this neighborhood plan by council. And in closing, I hope that decisions on future development will take the adopted written plan into consideration rather than using comments made at public input meetings such as what was done with the Silverton Road apartment complex. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Claudine Shaw.
Mayor Bennett and City Councilman, I highly esteem both Brian and Eunice in all of the work that they have done with each one of us. They have listened to us. They have given us ideas that perhaps we wouldn't have even had, but they have done great with this project. I'm looking forward to the historical. Lansing has a great history. I'm looking forward to the historical value of this. I'm looking forward to other parks being put in other areas in Lansing. We have a lot of children, and we have a lot of families, and these parks are very vital. They're places for the children to go. We do have some apartments and stuff, and some of those don't have much as far as play equipment goes. I would prefer seeing them in the parks to seeing them on the road. So thank you very much. Thank you, Brian and Kim. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Shaw? Okay. Okay. Anyone else want to testify on this neighborhood plan?
Excuse me again.
Okay. Any questions for staff? Councilor Anderson.
Yes, I'm looking at the staff recommendation, and I just wonder if one of you could explain the difference between component of the comprehensive plan and support documents.
The policies that become a component of the comprehensive plan are adopted into the actual comprehensive plan and can be relied upon in decisions, applications that are made. The support documents are actually not a component are not part of the policies plan, but they are, as the name suggests, support documents, and so they are something that are typically like the recommendations that are a little bit, they're not things that are currently in our TSP or something, but they're ideas that have come through this process. And so those could still be considered through a land use application process, but they are the recommendations and the sort of the bigger dreams and ideas that the neighborhood came up with, typically.
Any other questions? Well, Brian, I just want to add to the comments that were made by the previous speakers, to you, Lisa, and Eunice, that having watched you do two of these real closely, with the Cessna, NEN, and then NESCA and Lansing, just what a superb job you've done with these. It really was, the remarks were not gratuitous. I think they're really well deserved, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all the support that we've received for it. Yes.
Good. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Now close. Councilor Rossi.
I'd like to move staff recommendation.
Second. Second by Hoy. Okay,
I'll just add to what everyone else was saying, that to thank Patty and Virginia and Claudine for coming down and sharing with all the work that you've done and that you've done with the staff, and it's been a great job. So thank you, everyone.
Yep. Councilor Anderson.
This is my second plan because, like the mayor, I was involved in the Cessna and NEN, which are parts of Ward 1 and Ward 2. And this one has 4 out of the 8 councilors. The councilors Hoy, Osick, Kaiser, and I are all part of this group. And so I think it was a terrific job, and I too commend the neighborhood leaders who spoke tonight, and also the people who were involved in the steering committee and the staff. This is a great plan.
I agree. You agree? You too? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. Okay. I'll open the next public hearing, 17-584 on whatever.
The City
that is.
Council will now hold a public hearing to receive testimony regarding an exemption from competitive bidding and authorization of an alternative contracting method for the police facility project. The hearing will be conducted with staff presentation first, followed by other interested persons. Individuals testifying are limited to 3 minutes. A yellow light will appear at the podium when 1 minute remains, and a red light will appear when your time has expired. Please conclude your testimony when the red light appears.
We'll let you go longer, Alan. You can go first, okay?
Thank you, Mayor and Councilors. Alan Dannon with Public Works Engineering Division. Here tonight, my job is to just provide the reasoning behind staff's recommendation for a competitive bidding exemption and authorization of construction manager, general contractor, or CMGC contracting method for the Salem Police Facility project. And to set the stage for that, I'd just like to give a quick project status update and then a brief explanation of the method, and then follow up with a quick summary of the findings. So since the bond passed in May, it's been a busy few months. We have pulled together the large majority of our project team. We've hired an owner's representative to give project management support through construction of the project. Our architect design team is on board and busily underway, engaged with our staff, both in Public Works and Facilities and the Police Department, on initial design activities. The council approved a purchase and sale agreement for the property, and closing is scheduled at the end of this month, so we'll be able to take ownership, and we're preparing to begin demolition activities soon after that happens in the first part of 2018. And another important milestone is the bonds were sold back in August, and so we were able to get all the funding under our control. And that, of course, as everybody knows, starts the clock ticking on the 3-year spend down to get 85% of those funds allocated to construction. So sets our move-in target for the later part of 2020. While we've been going through all that, we've also been talking to contractors, talking to consultants, and everything we've been hearing is the construction market is very hot right now. Prices are continuing to escalate both for labor and materials, and so that that combined with knowing that we have a set schedule has made us consider maybe an alternate method to contracting would best fit this project. So just to start with what is the CMGC process, I thought the best way to do that would just be a side-by-side comparison. So the typical way that most public works projects get done is called design bid build, or sometimes low bid contracting, and that's what you see on top of the slide here. It's a very linear process. We start with design and work with the designers, come up with a finished set of construction documents, put those out for bid, and contractors bid on those, the general contractors bid on those. The low bidder gets the work and they go out and do the work. And for most of our projects, that process works just fine. But for projects with high degrees of complexity or schedule issues, there are some challenges. And you can see the general contractor gets on board late in the project process, and they develop their bid for the project independently. And so if there's differences in understanding between the design team and the contractor, those typically get resolved in change orders, and there can be delays, and that adds expense to the project. So the construction, or the CMGC process, lets that GC come into the project sooner and expands their role, and adding the construction manager element to represent construction during the design phase of the project. That CMGC comes on relatively early in the design process, and they are competitively selected. So it's not that we're exempted from all competition on the project. It is still a competitive process to bring that CMGC on board. It's just that we consider more factors than price. We also consider their qualifications, experience with similar types of work, and experience in the Salem market. During design, that construction manager can collaborate with the rest of the design team, and we get the value of their expertise on where costs are in the market, what may or may not impact our schedule, long lead times for certain materials, and just the construction perspective. Sometimes the designers may have a goal and see a way of designing the project to reach that goal, and the contractor may have a insight on a more efficient method to reach that same goal and make the project more constructible. So all of those things sometimes get referred to as value engineering, and that's a really important component of this process. The other thing that CMGC can be doing during that time is really engaging with our local subcontractor market and trying to get out and work with the folks here in Salem and the surrounding area and understand how the project might be fit to best use those local resources. The other thing that you see on the bottom half of the slide is this process lets some early work happen. So not saying that this is exactly how our project will go, but it gives you an idea that while we're working on design, we could issue an early site work package to get out and do work this summer so we don't lose the benefit of that good weather. While that's going on, we could be putting together another work package to follow even concurrently to put in the foundations and start working on the structure, and then follow up with finishing the shell and the interiors. This certainly saves time, and you can see the difference in the schedule in front of you, and as everybody knows, especially in this market, time is money. Toward the end of the design, the contractor provides a guaranteed maximum price. That's the term that many of you may have heard associated with this process. And what that really does is it allows them to use all that experience that they have now with the design team to say, okay, this is what we can build the project for. So we all have much more cost certainty and much less risk of change orders as we finish out the construction. So the reasons why, or the benefits that we see for this important project for the city, one, that collaboration and that value engineering that we get with our selected CMGC, but still leaving the city in control of both the contract with our design team and the contract with our contractor, so that we're central in all that decision making and making sure that we get the product that we need and that we meet our budget and schedule targets. It's a more flexible process, so that if we do need to do some things to control costs or manage changes, we can work with our CMGC during design to make that happen. And it helps us have honest conversations about risk and sharing that risk between the parties instead of just putting it all on the contractor, which then they'll raise their prices. And finally, the time savings that I mentioned and the ability to engage with the local trade subcontractors to really maximize that utilization. So the findings before you have two components that are required by the ORS. One, that the exemption and approval of this process is unlikely to encourage favoritism or substantially diminish competition. And as I mentioned before, the process is still competitive and involves experience factors, but also cost. And then the process for subcontractors is also competitive as well. So that competition element or favoritism element is really not part of this process. The other part of the findings is that there'll be substantial cost savings and other benefits to the public. And that value engineering component will really help us realize savings as we go through design. It reduces that risk and gives us the certainty to make sure that we can meet our budget without running into costly delays or change orders. And finally, the time saving also helps us make sure that we meet our 3-year spend down target. And the last thing I think that's important to note is it gets our police into their new facility faster, which allows them to only enhance the already great service that they provide. So with that, we're recommending that you approve the resolution before you tonight that will provide the competitive bidding exemption and authorize the CMGC process. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you very much. We have no members of the public signed up to comment on this item under the public hearings. Chief Moore, Deputy Chief Belshaw, would either of you like to speak on this? Okay, great. So you can question Alan if you'd like. Go ahead, Councilor.
It sounds like a fantastic project, Alan, and I'm all in favor of it. I just have a couple of questions. I'm a little confused. CMGC, is that one entity or two entities?
It's one entity performing two roles. So that contractor, just call them the contractor, they come on as the construction manager during the design phase, and then they act as the general contractor once the project is to construct.
So there's really three elements of this. There's the owner's representative, there's the CMGC, and then there's the design team.
Correct.
And all those are working together.
Correct.
And the general contractor, how is that person hired? Well, let me back up. I sort of get the impression that this is more like things might be done in private practice than non-governmental work than governmental work. Is that a fair assumption?
I would say that it does more closely mirror how work gets accomplished in the private sector,
okay.
but it's widely used in the public sector as well for these types of facilities.
So how is the general contractor going to be hired?
Right. So the general contractor gets hired as part of that initial RFP-like process where we select them on price and qualifications.
Perfect. And so in that, the owner's representative and the design team will have input along with the city staff.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just curious, I just wanted to make sure that using this process wouldn't limit our ability to hire a qualified general contractor. I'm assuming that we have a quality pool here locally that we'd be able to hire from?
Yeah, so really the limit for a project like this is what contractors can bond. And there's not a whole lot of local contractors that can really bond this big of a project. But we've already had interest from several GCs that do this kind of work all the time. I'd say there's strong interest in the project overall. So that part is good. And then the local trades here are really strong. And this process allows us to maximize their use as well. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Very good. Councilor McCoy. I'll close public hearing. Councilor McCoy.
I move the staff's recommendation.
Second by Anderson. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Oh, sorry. Councilor Nanki?
Yeah, just a real quick one. And as Alan said, we've used the CMGC model inside of the city several times before, and it's always worked our advantage on getting projects done expeditiously, and a lot of times at a significant cost savings, definitely time savings.
Okay, great. Okay, any further comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes.
Building.
Okay, we will open our next
forward to
public
Bill.
hearing.
The City Council will now conduct a public hearing regarding minor amendments to Title 10 of the Salem Revised Code, known as the Unified Development Code, UDC. The criteria applicable to the proposed amendment is SRC 110.085B. Testimony must be directed toward the identified criteria or other criteria the person believed to apply to the decision. A failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. The hearing will be conducted with staff presentation first, followed by other interested persons. Neighborhood associations are limited to 5 minutes per association for testimony. Individuals testifying are limited to 3 minutes. A yellow light will appear at the podium when 1 minute remains, and a red light will appear when your time has expired. Please conclude your testimony when the red light appears.
Good evening, Council. Dan Atchison, City Attorney. This is one of 2 ordinances on for second reading tonight. This ordinance deals with the Unified Development Code, which is Title 10 of the SRC. About a little over a year ago, the city contracted with Municode, which is a company that hosts jurisdictions' codes. And so what's going to happen is our code will be hosted sort of off-site on the cloud, so to speak. It'll provide a much more enhanced search service, easier access to the code, much easier to find legislative history, references to state law and things like that. As part of their service, what they've done is they have their team of lawyers, which I think is actually one, who currently works out of her house most of the time, go through our entire code and review it for compliance with state and federal law, as well as get input from the city attorney's office, and we worked with all the departments on that. This particular ordinance is just Title 10. We tried to stay away from making any substantive changes. There's very few things here that are of substance in your staff report. On page 2 of 3, in the middle there's a couple things that we are changing. We're adding standards for replacement of significant site features for non-contributing buildings in historic districts. This was an omission when our historic code was substantially revised several years ago, and this will just correct that omission. There's a corrected map for the Gady Hill Bushes Pasture Park Historic District, just makes the call close. There was an error in the legal description. And then SRC 300-1080, it changes the requirement for action on remand of quasi-judicial decisions to 120 days from 90 days. State law changed about 4 or 5 years ago to make it 120 days instead of 90 days within which the city's got to take action on remand. So we're just staying consistent with state law. There's findings in the ordinance as well as supplemental findings for compliance with the criteria, which are basically, is it in the public interest and does it conform with the Salem Area Comprehensive Plan? And we believe that it does, and we would ask you to support second reading.
Okay, we have no members of the public signed up to testify on this. Any questions for staff? Councilor Anderson.
I guess it's not a question, it's a comment. I just have to say, and this probably doesn't pertain to the other 8 of you here, but as a lawyer, I just get so excited about this stuff.
Wow. Yeah.
I think you're right.
Christmas must be just something else at your house. Councilor Kaiser.
Thank you. Just a quick question. So is our code hosted with Municode right now, or is it going to be?
It's going to be sometime in January. We're still working out the technical details to make sure that when someone searches our website, they're actually able to pull that up and be able to find it.
I think that'll be great for to be able to find things a bit more easier. So that's good.
Yes, Councilor Cook.
Just a question if I was missing it. Was there a recommendation from the tech department where they consulted in the cloud hosting as well, or did I miss it? Was it in there?
When we issued the RFP, we worked with the IT department and selected Municode out of about 6 different vendors.
So this has their support as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And the public hearing is closed. Councilor McCoy.
I move the staff recommendation.
Second.
Second by Cook. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. Go on to special orders of business. Councilor McCoy. Is that mine?
That's yours, isn't it?
I was just going to let you have it.
Okay, I move, it's information only.
Is that all this is?
It's appointments.
My appointment.
Okay.
Okay, well then,
It says recommendation, information
we didn't
only.
wait. We'll move on from there. Anyone have any questions on these?
Mayor's appointments.
They're mayor's appointments. They're just telling us he did it.
I'm sorry, it didn't say that. It just says appointments, so I thought maybe you guys got to stamp
We
it.
could
No, you're the
raise a
man.
stink if we wanted to, maybe.
You
But
could try. Okay, go to information reports. Anyone want to bring any of these up? Ask any questions?
that's the one with Fisher
Got a lot
Road.
of staff waiting on this. Yes, Councilor Kaiser, thank you.
Thank you. I guess I just have a question on 6.E, which is a appeal of a planning commission's decision. Not sure who I should direct it to. Nora.
Yes, Council, I'd be happy to address your question, but likely as not, I'd like to call Lisa Anderson Ogilvie to answer the question a little more effectively than
She
me.
was smiling behind you, so.
Yeah.
Yes, hello.
So my question is just, sometimes when these decisions are appealed, they go directly to council, and sometimes they go to the hearings officer. That's my understanding. Can you just explain what conditions have to exist for which to go to which?
Yeah, so each application type has an appeal body. Generally, administrative decisions go to the hearings officer. When we adopted site plan review, this is a site plan review decision, we made it so that the appeals go to hearings officer, but the city council would have the option to take jurisdiction of that appeal. So they're a little unique in that we ask you if you want to have the appeal or let it go to the hearings officer.
Okay.
So if the council wants to hear the appeal, you need to make a motion for that tonight. Otherwise, it will go to the hearings officer.
Well, and then this appeal is this administrative, it's kind of an administrative technical appeal instead of a substantive, is my kind of reading of it, but.
All I have is the letter that was submitted.
Sure,
It's in the
that's
packet.
fine. I guess I just wanted to make the comment that it's such a technical appeal that I would rather it go to the hearings officer than for council to hear it.
Okay. Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is regarding 6C, and I would, this is for Mr. Fernandez. A couple of things. One is, I just would like to thank you for bringing this forward. I'm very, very pleased to see progress started on Fisher Road. And, but earlier tonight, we had a gentleman testify, Mr. Courtwright, about some other suggestions for Fisher Road. And I was wondering if you had a comment or opinion on some of his suggestions, or if you...
Sure.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, Peter Fernandez, Public Works Director. They're all great suggestions. I think what's missing is the fact that we're working, Fisher Road has a very, very narrow right-of-way. And so it's a very compact area. So what we have recommended are some actions that can actually be built inside of the right-of-way that can actually do some good to address the issues. I think the staff report speaks to, our long-term goal to have sidewalks, to have crossing medians. I mean, I think all those things are fantastic. We do those all over the place. Those, unfortunately, are millions of dollars, given the construction costs and the fact that in a place like this, there'd be significant right-of-way acquisitions where you see the houses packed up and you kind of see the map in the back, and there are all those little lots. We'd have to acquire right-of-way from every single lot on both sides of the street to be able to widen for a pathway or ultimately what we want to do to install sidewalks or to put in a median. So then we get into a lot of money versus what we've recommended that we can do for the cost of just installing the appurtenance on existing right-of-way.
Thank you. And this report doesn't limit us to this action. This is just, this could be maybe a starting point, and sometime in the future, we could do other things should you determine that they're prudent and affordable. And
Of course. This is a street, we have streets all over town that are in this condition. We've spent years addressing pedestrian needs, and when the next bond issue rolls around, the Lansing NESCA plan talks about sidewalks on Hawthorne. We did the northern part of Hawthorne. We need to do the southern part. We need to do Fisher. We need to do Pringle. We need to do a bunch of east-west streets in Councilor Cook's ward. I mean, they're all over the place, and we just need to keep picking them off. But as I've expressed to councilors in the past, transportation projects are extraordinarily expensive.
Yes,
so,
thank you.
So we just got to do them as we can afford them. But no, this is just the first step to address these issues here.
Thank you, and I just wanted to mention one other thing. Steve Walsh, the NOLA chair, had intended to be here tonight. He sent me an email a little bit ago, and he was not able to be here, but he wanted to testify in support of our action on this, so just thought I'd share that with my colleagues.
Okay. Mr. Fernandez, what is the right-of-way width on this, on Fisher Road? You said it's narrow. I'm just curious what that narrow means.
Yeah, it varies. You can see it on the map. It's I think it's 40 feet on the south, and we're guessing. I don't have that at my fingertips. And then it widens out to 60 feet at the northern end.
What's the history of this road? Is this
It's a county. It's a county cow path that over time
It's a
has.
county road that came in the
Right.
past 50 years. Is that the?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Great. Councilor Cook.
Just to build on that one more or less time, Peter, I know we've gone around about this before, but what is the width of the lanes? And is there any way that some of these things could be accommodated by narrowing the lane width to free up some of that additional space with already established right-of-way? Would that be
Yeah.
something you'd look at?
Yeah, we could. I think in this case, this is a very narrow roadway as it is, and because it is, we already use narrow lanes when we have divided facilities, so our stand's already 11 feet. So we've already, and in downtown, we use 10 and 9-foot lanes, sometimes when we have to squeeze things through. We would not recommend it in a two-way situation here, especially with a long run. So these are already pretty narrow, and we really, if there was something else that could be done affordably, because we just don't have the resources to do much more, we would have recommended it. Ultimately, the solution is, curbs and sidewalks, and then some of the additional appurtenances that you heard from Mr. Courtwright would be great in such a tight area like this, but they all require right-of-way acquisition.
Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Director Fernandez. I agree. We got problems like this all over the city, and we need to start picking them off, and we're doing that, and thank you for doing that. This is more just a general comment on item 3 on your report, which is the 85th percentile and the speed things. And I've discussed this tangentially when we talk about other pedestrian deaths, and at some point it becomes a system problem as opposed to an accident. And I can just see if there's a long, straight, narrow way going down Fisher Road, it's going to increase speeding. So, which gets back to kind of if people are going faster on the roads than the designated speed, at least part of that can be due to the fact that the roads are designed for people to go that fast. So I would hope that we could do something both along the lines of the stuff that you proposed in here and along the lines of some of the things that Mr. Courtwright mentioned, because I don't know much about this, but I have heard several people say the longer the vista, the faster cars want to go. If you can break up the horizon a bit, it's helpful. So I look forward to improvements on Fisher Road and improvements of a like nature on other roads.
This is an interesting one. I'm glad you bring that up, Councilor, because you're absolutely correct. Of course, cars don't want to go fast. It's, other than in the Pixar movie, people are the ones that want to go fast. This is already posted 25 miles an hour. This is already a very narrow road, and things are built up on top of it, and there's a lot of pedestrian congestion. And yet, people are still speeding. So it's an interesting problem that we continue to have. This is probably designed the way we would want to design a road to limit speeding, and yet people are still going. You know, the discussion here in item 3 is that the 85th percentile speed is 33 miles an hour. Yeah, 33 and 34 miles an hour, but it's already posted 25 and it's already narrow. So it's a real conundrum that drivers, unfortunately, are just quite disrespectful in residential areas like this, even with people in their scooters and children walking and the like.
Wow. Councilor Kaiser.
Thank you. Just to comment on the action. So talking about speeding, one of the actions is speed radar signs, and I'm just wondering, do those work?
Oh, yeah.
We have
Yes.
evidence that they deter speeding.
Yes, this dynamic, it's a great innovation, and they're actually fairly inexpensive to not just is the speed posted, but you're getting real-time feedback on how you're driving. So we believe that they do work. I think there's evidence that they work where they're posted, and hopefully for the person that is just unaware, you know, quiet driving car, you know, you're not looking down at your speedometer, but you can look up and see that you're exceeding the posted speed limit. So yeah, we think that's going to be a great tool for this area right here.
I guess just a quick follow-up question. I was actually in a community over the summer where they had one of these speed radar signs, but it was also coupled with a camera. So when you tripped it, you know, you could see the flash, and it's like you're getting sent a ticket. And I've often wondered if something like that would be helpful in the city for these trouble areas, like truly where they're dangerous, where as soon as you trip that, it's like you're nailed, because
Like a red light camera.
I think those are now legal in the state of Oregon, and I don't know what we have to do to get there, but the city attorney's sitting right there, and the police chief is sitting over here, and that's the enforcement part of the equation.
And another one I've seen too is one that is a speed radar sign that when you're going over the speed limit, it goes off. I mean, it's spinning red lights and a whole bunch of things. Are those, do we have those in the
Yeah, I
United
think these
States?
can be programmed that after a certain speed, then they actually start flashing.
Yeah. Well, this is more than flashing. This is a red lights going in a circle around a stop, essentially.
Yeah, I don't think we want to do that.
They're great. They're great.
I
I'll tell
think
you
there's
what,
a-
you want to stop just because it scares you.
Yeah, these are the stop signs are further down the road in these proposals. So these are speed limit signs with the feedback, and
The
so
thing that's troubling, Mr. Fernandez, is 25 miles an hour translates into 35 with people on scooters and kids on bikes.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if stop signs is enough. I think that's kind of the question, is can we do more? Would you look at more and maybe talk to us about it again at some point?
It's right here in the staff report what more is. This is what we can do to address the issue right now within the constraints of the existing right-of-way and the constraints of the budget. If we had $5 million, we'd be talking about a lot more.
I understand the $5 million, but is there a $50,000 solution in it?
It's already in here.
Okay.
It's the speed signs and the stop signs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilor Hoy.
Thank you. A comment and then a question. And the comment is, I believe we'll need a legislative fix to allow for speed cameras in the city of Salem. I understand that it's maybe limited to just a few specific cities in Oregon currently, and we would need a legislative fix to include us in that. That's my understanding. But I'd ask the city attorney maybe to look at that, because that's something I'd be interested in, actually. The other thing is my question on timeline. What's our timeline for some of this work?
Good evening, Mayor, councilors. My name is Kevin Hopman. I'm the city traffic engineer. The speed radar signs ordering will take a couple of months. The stop signs, the weather will kind of limit our ability to put some of the painting down that we would need for the stop bars and stuff. But I'd say at the latest early spring.
Okay. Councilor Cook?
And I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. I know we've talked about speed bumps before, and Fisher Road would not be an appropriate place. Did staff look at other interventions such as speed cushions? Was that something that you looked at for Fisher Road at all?
Yeah, none of that is allowed per our neighborhood traffic management plan. So anything that forces an up and down movement, because this is a collector street that provides access to the neighborhood, and by extension then an emergency vehicle access route, humps, bumps, cushions, none of that is allowed on collectors and arterials.
Thank you.
Councilor Case.
Thank you. I'm just going to follow up again on my comment about the cameras and the speed signs, and to kind of Councilor Hoy's comment. I too am interested in that. I don't know what it would take if it's action on our part to just study it and to see if Salem's eligible, where those might go, how they might be implemented. But I would be very interested in studying that issue.
Ditto.
So I don't know if I need to make a motion to do it, but
Peter, can you do?
maybe I see the chief wandering slowly.
Perhaps the chief can address.
Good evening, Mayor.
Excuse me,
City
Jerry.
Council.
Hold on a second. Perhaps, Jerry can certainly, the chief can address this current legislative possibility or permission. However, if that is the sense of council to pursue that, we can do that. I don't think a motion is necessary if that is the sense of council this evening.
Yeah, I would be. Yeah, very, very interested.
Chief, did you want to?
Well, I will let you know, we tried that several legislative sessions in the past. There's like 10 or 12 cities in the state of Oregon that can do that, and we were denied by the legislature.
Okay.
So yeah, whatever it takes, but why we're denied, I'm not sure. But if we can pursue that again, so we can have that as a tool in our toolkit, that'd be great.
It's where legislators drive might be one of the. I'll just give you simple, really simple. So it is. It's where legislators drive. Imagine they want to put a camera. Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I want to talk about 6D, which is staff believes that noise, odor, and trespassing concerns related to ducks are similar to chickens, and that it is appropriate to allow ducks in the same manner as chickens are allowed. So it then says staff recommends that any proposed amendments related to ducks be included in a package of code amendments. Should I move that? Do you need a motion to do that, or are they going to do that? City manager? Or, the city attorney?
If I may. Dan Atchison, city attorney. So your original motion was for staff to come back and research the issue and come back to council. We've done that. And I think if you want staff to move forward on that, please make the motion, and we will do so.
I move that the staff include amendments to allow ducks in urban environments to their upcoming package of code amendments that you're going to work on.
Second.
Second by Ossick. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay.
That was aye and Doug language.
I think we're done with information. Oops, Councilor Nank.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on the Fisher Road issue as well. And we've put resources towards that area in the past, and I'm sure during our put together the next Streets and Bridges bond measure, it would take a high priority as well. That being said, in regards to speed cameras, you can do a lot of things as well. You can just make them flash, which will scare people and slow them down, because they'll have that negative reinforcement thing that happens. You can also take old police cars and park a couple of them here or there down there. But with the red light cameras and what have you, and there's issues with that as well, because it has to be a picture of the registered driver. With the red light pieces, you had issues, and I had studied that and did a thesis on it way back when as well, as far as rear end accidents increasing. I don't think we're making much money on it now. We may actually lose money at times. The state's been up and down on whether or not to pull it off of the couple intersections we have in town as well. So
Very good.
there's a lot of issues always involved with those to really understand.
I'm sure we'll be talking about all this again. So, very good. Okay, first reading of ordinances.
Ordinance Bill Number 2917, an ordinance relating to providing for a property tax exemption for certain low-income housing nonprofit owners, creating new provisions, and declaring an emergency.
Councilor.
Move the staff recommendation.
Second by Nanki.
I got it in one.
Very good. you want to comment on it?
No, well, again, we've discussed this and brought it forward, provide for property tax exemption for nonprofit owners of low-income housing. The community needs more low-income housing. We've had folks that do provide it come in and say this is going to help them add to the, the stock of low-income housing in the city. So those things being there, I think it's part of, certainly in line with what we talked about in their strategic plan, and I think what everybody in this council philosophically agrees with anyway. So I would urge a yea, an aye vote, aye vote.
Very good. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we'll go second readings.
Ordinance Bill number 2817, an ordinance vacating Frontage Road Northwest and Paradise Court Northwest. Councilor Nanki.
Aye.
Councilor McCoy.
Aye.
Councilor Ossick.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Cook.
Aye.
Councilor Lewis.
Aye.
Councilor Kaiser.
Aye.
Councilor Anderson.
Aye.
And Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Motion passes.
And we'll just keep going down
Whatever
the-
it was, yeah, it passed.
Okay. Ordinance Bill number
Ordinance passed.
2717, an ordinance relating to adopting the new Northeast Salem Community Association and Lansing Neighborhood Association NESCA Lansing Neighborhood Plan, a component of the Salem Area Comprehensive Plan, and amending SRC 64.005. Councilor McCoy.
Aye.
Councilor Ossick.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Cook.
Aye.
Councilor Lewis.
Aye.
Councilor Kaiser.
Aye.
Councilor Anderson.
Aye.
Councilor Nanki.
Aye.
Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, the ordinance passes.
And ordinance bill number 2517, an ordinance relating to general government assessments and liens, businesses and vocations, health and sanitation, community development standards, utilities, streets, municipal offenses and vehicles and traffic, amending titles 1 through 9, creating new provisions and declaring an emergency. Councilor Ossick.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Cook.
Aye.
Councilor Lewis.
Aye.
Councilor Kaiser.
Aye.
Councilor Anderson.
Aye.
Councilor Nanki.
Aye.
Councilor McCoy.
Aye.
And Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, the ordinance passes.
Okay. Ordinance Bill number 2617, an ordinance relating to land use, amending Title 10, the Unified Development Code, and declaring an emergency. Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Cook.
Aye.
Councilor Lewis.
Aye.
Councilor Kaiser.
Aye.
Councilor Anderson.
Aye, aye.
Councilor Nanki.
Aye.
Councilor McCoy.
Aye.
Councilor Ossick.
Aye.
And Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, ordinance passes. I have no one else signed up for public comment. Is there anyone who wanted to address council? Okay, the council's adjourned.